am I doing here?
Just leave it.
No. Okay. Is that all right?
That's fine, yeah. Do you want to wave to your personal camera over there? Okay. All right. Let's crack on then.
That'll be the trailer.
Yeah. Welcome to Claret Blue. I'm Dan Rowanson, joined by a special guest for the channel, Dan Bardell. Welcome. How are you?
Good, thanks, mate. Good. Looking forward to talking to you.
We did a podcast together in our old offices in February 2020. And that's probably one of the last times we physically saw each other in person. It's been a while.
Day of the Leicester semi-final, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah.
So obviously just before the lockdowns of March. We're in a new Birmingham Live office today. It's the first time here. It's very swanky. It's very nice. And we're here just for a bit of a catch-up, really. I've got nothing prepped, really. We're going to talk a little bit about Villa, obviously, and kind of how things have been over the last few years. I asked you in that, like, in 5 years' time, what will you be doing from, like, a media perspective? It's like, I don't know, like, if I'm not doing it full-time, I feel like a failure and all these things. And it's almost like a bit of a mental health chat as well we had in that episode as well.
Yeah.
About, like, the social media kind of pressures and stuff like that. So it's almost like an update on that, what's happened since then and what's, like, plans moving forward as well.
You've become a full-time presenter since then, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
You've cracked what I wanted to do.
Yeah, you wanted to do this full time.
I'm going to become a video editor.
Doing it full time instead. Before we get into all that, though, let's talk about Villa.
Yeah.
How good was last season from your perspective?
I mean, I didn't enjoy the first 3 months of the season very much.
I kind of put that to one side.
It felt like about kind of 4 different seasons even rolled into one. It was obviously a unique season anyway because of the World Cup taking place in winter. So I think that broke it up a little bit. Emery kind of had just come in, hadn't he? We'd had 2 games just before the World Cup broke. We won them both, and then there was suddenly this break, and then we came back. And we weren't quite. We had a bit of a sticky patch up at one point. You could see what Emery was trying to do. I don't think the players had got totally to grips with it in January. But then suddenly it just clicked.
Teething problems, you would call it.
Yeah, but I remember saying at the time, like, I think this will be a good thing that we've gone through this, and this will be a plus one day. Now, I didn't for the life of me think this will be a plus this season, and we'll get through these teething problems and we'll qualify for Europe. I think I'd have been looking at qualifying for Europe this season coming as being the ambition, maybe getting the Conference League. So to have already done that is just huge for the football club, and huge for, like, it just tells you everything that you need to know about the manager, doesn't it? And how good he is. I already know he will go down as the best manager I've ever seen at Villa. I just know that, and we'll come on to transfers and stuff, I'm sure, but I've just got like a full trust in him.
Yeah.
Like, people lose their mind over transfers, and you're being linked with players and then they go elsewhere, potentially players that the club aren't even in.
What are you doing? You've missed out.
We're so slow off the mark, blah, blah, blah. But it sounds stupid, especially when I'm about to go on and do the next 6 weeks talking about transfers on Sky. I don't actually care.
Yeah,
because
I'm glad you said that.
I just trust Emery, whatever we do. Because look at January, right? People were losing their mind that we got rid of Danny Ings. We've only got one striker, and then we signed Duran, obviously, who I don't really class as a senior striker, but we signed him. We've got rid of our top goal scorer. What are we doing? Then we didn't sign a striker in the last days of January. We lost a few games. People were losing their mind then. But just looking at that just makes me completely trust the process, because Emery did what he did without bringing in many of his own players. He brought in a left back who I think was quite a transformative signing, actually, the end. But he didn't reinvent the wheel, did he? He just improved the players that were already there and managed to harvest and create a team with what he already had.
Yeah.
And to me, that's massively impressive, because you look at what Gerrard did the January before, where he was saying, I need this, I need that. If I don't get players who can do what I want, I'll just buy some more players. That was his attitude. Emery is the complete opposite of that. And look at what he's done already. So I don't really care how many players we sign, because I've got full belief that we'll do well because of the manager that we have in place.
Yeah, I've said this before, and there was a stage when we would do podcasts for Claret Blue, like transfer targets, who might we sign, who are the latest rumours, and I hate stuff like that. And it sounds bad, and I've had comments before saying, like, oh, how can you do a transfer podcast if you're not into it? But I don't like the transfer window. From a work perspective as well, like all the rumours, the constant kind of like, I need to be available because if something happens, I've got to go and talk about it. But just like the endless kind of churn of, are we linked with this player?
Because there's so much nonsense, isn't
there? A
there?
bid has been prepared, and it's all these different stages, and the reality is probably nothing is happening. I like to start to kind of think about where a player might fit in, or what it means for a teammate or something, when it's that they're signed. We signed Tielemans, okay, what does that mean for so-and-so? What does it mean for this? Kind of speculating about certain players that are never going to end up at Villa anyway. I could not give a
with Villa, it tends to happen quite quickly as well, doesn't it? Like Tielemans was done in, felt like it might have been done in days, but the press got murmurs that Tielemans was coming, and then within 3 days, I think we'd signed him. Pau Torres, it took a while to complete, but we all knew it was happening. But when it came out, it was pretty far advanced down the line, wasn't it? And it'll be the same with the players that we end up signing. Obviously, there's a lot about Diaby at the moment from Leverkusen. I think at some point a bid will probably get accepted, and then it'll get done quite quickly. That's how Villa operate. As I say, like a lot of my work is based around talking about transfers and the Premier League, and I love doing it about the other teams. But whereas Villa are concerned, like my phone, I get a text off people every 5 minutes saying, "Oh, we've been linked with this player. Do you think we'll sign him?" And just like,
I don't care.
I used to care more, but I think since Emery's come in, I don't really care. Is not the right word, because obviously I want us to sign good players, but I do just have now this full trust.
But there'll be players that you'll link with or you'll eventually sign where, as supporters, you'll go, I'm not quite sure about him, or he didn't have a great spell.
Again, I don't think I will feel like that
with
Emery.
With Emery, you wouldn't. But before, you'd be like, well, he didn't play well at Wolves or wherever, so why are we after him? He's been outcast at wherever he is. With Emery, if he's targeted a player and his record of improving players, you think, if he wants him, that's fine with me. Like, I'm not really bothered about thinking, well we need a holding midfielder, we need this. So if Emery doesn't think we need that, just let's all calm down and go with what he thinks.
Yeah,
he's the manager.
It's like the striker. It's like the striker situation. Isn't it? In January, everyone was like, "We need another striker." But I think that was before Ings went. As well, everyone was saying we need a striker. But what Emery did and the decisions that he made actually completely revitalised Ollie Watkins, and look at the second half of the season that he had. So I just think that I've never had that just full trust in what the club do will be the right thing, and it's whatever the job titles are and that hierarchy thing that we've seen in recent weeks. Unai Emery is the man. Yeah. He's the man at Villa, and I'm all for that. It's memories of Martin O'Neill when he had complete control and then he left and it all fell apart. The wheels came off. But I think we're in such a good place now that I don't think Emery will leave. But even if he does leave, I think Villa they know what they're doing now. They've got the right structure in place at the club, I would say.
Yeah, and obviously we've spoken about Emery leaving, and it would be, you'd expect in a way where obviously Villa do well, you've always got that thing of your manager is poached elsewhere rather than we're in a bad position and we sack him.
That wouldn't surprise me, you know.
It could happen.
If Real Madrid or Barca are looking for a manager, for example, just using them as an example, like why wouldn't they look at him? Because he's done his reputation, the world of good. I don't know about you, but when I got first wind that we were like that he was coming and that we were interested in him, at first I was a little bit like,
Really?
My first thought when Gerrard lost his job is, I want Pochettino.
Yeah.
That was my first thought, because he was available and there'd been murmurs that we were going to talk to him. So he was who I wanted. Straight away, that was my gut reaction to who I wanted at the club. But then you do your read and you look at things and you actually think, Arsenal were rubbish after Emery went as well. Like that was a really difficult job for him to come into. The press weren't great with him. But if you look at what he's done, especially when you look at what he's done with clubs who are maybe not expected to win trophies and win leagues and stuff, which is where Villa are. We're not expected to win things. I looked at that and thought, imagine what he can do at Villa, because he'll get backing and he will get backing from the owners. The club, the owners are brilliant. Like, probably up there as the best owners in the country, I would say. And you look at the fact that he got us into Europe straight away. When we finished a point off Brighton, everyone was raving about Brighton the entire season. We gave them a 12-13 game head start, and we finished 1 point
Spurs
off them.
As well, the same. I know people were raving about them, but you think
they were top four, weren't they?
Exactly.
When Emery came in,
Massive
I know they fell off, but they fell off a cliff. But we went through and we usurped all these teams and very close to finishing top six and getting Europa League, never mind Europa Conference.
This is a thing that kind of excites me for next season, that in our end of season show I said, and it was kind of like partly tongue-in-cheek, but the more time goes on, the more I think, it's possible. I sound like Villa will have a crack at the top four next season. Yeah. And people in the room laughed. There was a few YouTube comments again from opposition fans like, Villa fans off on it again, like saying they're going to get Champions League. You mentioned that 10-game or whatever it is, 12-game head start that we had last season. I don't know how many points we got from that off the top of my head. Was it 10 or 11 or something like that?
Won like 3 games maybe.
So let's say 10 points from Gerrard's era as a rough guess. I'll edit in whatever it is for the video. Yeah. Emery gets double that. as an average, 2 points a game. He gets double what Gerrard did. So again, it's not as easy to say extend that over the course of the season. But if we did, I think we'd have finished a point behind Newcastle this season just gone.
We'd have been third or fourth, wouldn't we, if the season had started when Emery came in?
Yeah, so why can't we do that next year? I know everyone improves and things happen and we get bad injury or whatever, but Villa will have a stab at it at least.
I do think being in Europe will, like, if we hadn't qualified for Europe, I'd in some ways be more confident of pushing towards the top four. I'm not saying we are going to push for top four. I'm not. I think we will at some point. It might not be this season, but I think if we could keep hold of Emery and he creates a legacy and a dynasty, I mean, he's here for 5+ years. There's nothing to suggest to me that we won't have a crack at getting top four, and it's there at the moment. I was on TalkSport the other day. I was talking about Villa on this occasion, and I said something along the lines of, I don't think it's going to be easy for Chelsea and Spurs to just come and be better than Villa next season. Yeah. Chelsea in particular, they've dropped an awful lot. Now, by the same, you look at it the same way, like, it's stupid that Villa managed to make so much improvement from when their manager went. Poch might come in and make them a lot better. But there's a lot of work to get through there. Same with Spurs. Villa, it felt like it was the manager that was letting things down. I'm not sure at Spurs and Chelsea it was the managers that were letting things down. It's the whole process, the whole body of the club that I think there was things wrong all over the place. With Villa, it felt like it was just the manager that was wrong, and that there was more to come from these players if they had the right manager, and that's exactly what's happened.
Do you think the drop off from the European competition will be as potentially dramatic as some people say? That, like, if we go far in the Conference League, we'll finish 12th in the Premier League.
I don't think it will be dramatic. I think it will affect us. We'll lose games undoubtedly that we probably won last season.
Yeah,
that will happen. Now, Emery's very used to navigating this, so to be in this position, you could not have a better manager. If you were to choose a manager to have in the Europa League or the Europa Conference League, I reckon 95% of the world would choose Unai Emery. Obviously Pep.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? He's a specialist in those tournaments. That's what he does. And he knows how to navigate that. I think if you look at the drop-off that Villarreal and Sevilla, to an extent, had when they were in those competitions and going all the way in the competitions, there was a drop. That's natural. But I just think with the tools that Emery's got at his disposal, he spoke about he doesn't like not having a game in the week. Yeah. He doesn't like Saturday to Saturday. He wants Thursday, Sunday.
It's mad, really, because you think how tactically is. You think you'd want as much time as possible.
He wants that. I mean, you interviewed Cash, and he said about there's going to be some serious team meetings. There's going to be some long meetings. Get some comfier chairs. But as a player as well, it's just like there's not really an excuse to not be able to navigate it. They'll need to add a few more bodies. Look, they're still light. It's not even bodies, is it? I think they need a couple of extra bits of quality in the side. I still think you'll see players move out. I think at the moment a squad's not big enough to move people out, but I don't think the size of the squad is a million miles away from what we'll have. I think you might see maybe the players that are going to move out, Nakamba, Sanson. They're not really.
They've not played minutes for us anyway.
They've not played anyway, have they? Like, you might see Dendoncker go, who I'd actually keep around, but you might see Dendoncker go. You might see Bertrand Traoré go. Then you might just see some couple of better options come in. Maybe people that are a bit more versatile in that. We're willing with Tyler Adams, for example, at one point. Maybe he comes in and replaces Dendoncker and
can do a job at right back.
As a backup to Cash.
Replace Ashley Young effectively.
I think Konsa will play games at right back this season because we're so strong in centre back. So we've got young players coming in as well who I think will form part of the squad, and will probably need to because of the European squad registration things as well. So I don't think we're a million miles away, but in the attacking positions, we definitely need a couple of bits of extra quality just because we're playing in Europe now, so we need European quality players.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get this video out as we're recording it. It's 3:10 on a Tuesday, so I'll try and get this out as quick as possible because things change very quickly. By the time this comes out, the players go to the US this week. I think it's tomorrow. So Wednesday. We could have signed somebody by Wednesday, Thursday, and then the dynamic changes. Like I was kind of having a tour of the office before we started, and they've got these, like, I don't know if they show up on camera, but these like big whiteboards here. It'd be interesting to do not like a team meeting, but like put the players like physically write them out. Do you know what I mean? And see where the depth is and things like that.
Yeah, I've done it in WhatsApp groups recently to try and work out where we are in terms of registering players for Europe, because the rules are very different in Europe. Like, you have to have those 8 homegrown players. You have to have not 8 who've trained at the club, but 8 that have trained
in England,
in the UK.
Yeah.
You have to have 8 of them. Ideally, you have 4 that have trained at the club as well, but we don't really have that, who are over 21. We don't really have that at the moment, because even a Rogbinham, he doesn't count because he was at West Brom's academy from a young age.
It's very complex, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got things that we need more of an expert to talk about that than me, but we've got things that we need to navigate that maybe people haven't considered.
And that affects transfer dealings and decisions,
of
because somebody you might think he'll go out on loan because he needs to play. It's like, well, actually, no, we need him now
Chambers
to fill.
is a prime example. Like, on the face of it, you'd think, well, we've got 4 centre-backs now. But the fact that he can, if needed, play defensive midfield. If needed, he can play right back. Carlos has obviously had those injury problems. He counts towards the homegrown quota. You think, actually, he'll probably stay if he's happy to not play as many games.
Yeah. Would Ashley Young have been a club trained player?
Yeah, not club trained.
No.
He'd have been an association trained, I believe, is the technical term.
Well, okay, you have done some research.
We've all played Football Manager. we've all qualified. Well, you probably haven't. We've all qualified for European Football Manager.
I qualified for Europe with Sunderland once.
I remember.
I think I got to the Europa League final and lost. Anyway,
Cool story.
I don't know what we're going to talk this video, because obviously we're looking back at next season. It's too early to do like a season kind of prediction kind of thing. But I've got kind of no doubts that we'll still be very good throughout the course of the season.
We'll be pushing towards top 6.
Yeah, there will be some kind of drop off, and like you said, we'll be playing somewhere on a Thursday night and then have Bournemouth at home on the Sunday and we'll lose, and people will go, bloody hell, like, that's bad. But those things will happen. But I think over the course of a season, we'll still, if we're not kind of nailed up in there the whole time, we'll be around the top 6 until the very end of the season and hopefully get into it. But I don't think we'll be a million miles away from the top 4 points wise.
Yeah, and we're all talking about like Europe because it's a big thing because the club hasn't been in Europe for so long. But you go, have a good go at the other cups as well.
Yeah, definitely.
We're desperate to win something as a fan base. Like, I can't believe that was 10 the last time we won something. I was just thinking while you were talking there. Like, I think the last home game we lost was Arsenal. How long ago does that feel?
Was it 7 in a row or something at home?
Yeah, we barely conceded a goal in that process as well. Like, we're in a funny position now where we're not used to losing.
Yeah.
Like, when we lost to Wolves, it felt like the end of the world because we hadn't lost for ages.
Yeah.
Wolves and Man U, we lost 2 in a row, didn't we? But before that, we were on that 10-game unbeaten run, which probably won't go down in history as being as special as the 10-game winning run in the Championship. But to go 10 games unbeaten in the Premier League is tough.
Yeah.
That is really, really hard to do.
You hear loads of ex-players saying like how difficult it is to just like win games in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Like for like a week-to-week thing, it's tough.
If you win a couple of games in a row in the Premier League, like when you're flirting around mid-table, it really moves you up in the league. Because back-to-backs are so big in the Premier League. To think what we did, that's why we got Europe. Because 10 unbeaten is huge. It was 8 wins, 2 draws, was it?
I think so, yeah.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah,
that shouldn't be happening.
For a club that was around mid-table, you know, if Man City do that, you go, oh yeah, fair enough. For Villa to do that, I think they did win 10 in a row. I think I said on a previous show that like if we were going into this season coming up now and Dean Smith was the manager, and this isn't a disrespect to Dean Smith, his first time in Europe as well, I would be concerned about, right, if we go heavy in Europe but the league form struggles and we do what West Ham did, win the Europa Conference League but finish 15th, I would think, well, there's some kind of structural problems there with the club, or the recruitment wasn't quite right, because the drop-off shouldn't be that extreme. For Emery to be this like season pro, that's 16 years in a row he's played in Europe. He, as much as the players won't be used to it, he'll know exactly how to prepare them for it. So all these long meetings and the travel and things like that, if he knows that like travelling overnight so they get to sleep on the plane or whatever is like a trick that works better, something silly like that, there's no better manager to prepare the players for that. So whilst the players are inexperienced in Europe, because the manager is so experienced, I don't think that drop-off is going to be as extreme as some people expect. Now, obviously, there's a chance I look stupid here in 6 months'
West Ham
time.
struggled in their last season.
They had problems, though, elsewhere, I think. Yeah. I don't think Villa have that.
No. And it's a little thing as well, which I haven't really heard being spoken about, but take Emery away for a second. His assistant, Packer, he's won the Champions League with Liverpool. He's been in European competitions. Him and Emery hadn't actually, I don't think they've worked together before until now. He's been brought in because he's got experience of the Premier League. But he's got that European experience as well, which is vital. It's massive. He'll know. I imagine a big part of his job is speaking to the players during the week, like being more in with the players than perhaps Emery will.
Yeah.
So he'll know the buttons to push and things like that. And Emery will as well. I just think the setup that the club have got now, it's so good.
It's elite.
It's even if it's not far off.
Yeah,
like it's where we were a few years ago. Like it's just. I mean, this is going to sound really disrespectful, and I don't mean it to. But when we were doing the Villa View and we were like speaking to Keith Winers,
Oh, yeah.
I was sat there at the time thinking this is great to be speaking to the CEO of Aston Villa. When he was talking about the structure of the club and the Villa engine and things like that, like, I was thinking, you haven't really explained to me what the Villa engine is there. We've asked you a few times now, and I don't really know what the Villa engine is still. Look, they haven't tried to jazz it up and give it any fancy terms. They've done what they've done, made the changes behind the scenes, but I just know that they're creating something, and it's going to be good. And this is going. I really think the next 5 years is going to be like the best time a lot of people have ever had as a Villa fan. Because I'm a bit older than you. I say a bit. I'm older than
10 years.
I'm 10 years older than you, so I've experienced a trophy win, albeit I was tested.
Still as a kid, though, it's not the same, is it?
No, but I just thought because Villa had 2 Coca-Cola Cup finals in 3 seasons, and they won them both. I was like, this is normal. Then they get to the FA Cup final in 2000. They lost, but it's another final, and I'm just thinking, this is pretty normal, isn't it? I'm at Wembley every few years, but the reality is that's not been what's happened. But I just think in the next 5 years, there's generations of Villa fans that have seen nothing. Max Stokes, for example, goes every game home and away. He hasn't really seen any success, has he? He hasn't seen Villa lift a trophy. He'll have seen us in finals, but like the playoffs will have been a massive thing to him. Whereas to me, the playoffs, I was relieved. Like I wasn't overjoyed or jubilant. I celebrated. I was with you. I celebrated a few bits.
Celebrated.
A few bits. You know what I mean? But the overriding emotion was just relief that we were not in the Championship anymore, because realistically it was a place that I never thought I'd find Villa.
Yeah, and I think you saw 2 mindsets that it was kind of like for people of my age, the younger generation, we were like, this is a big deal. Like we've won a trophy. Yes, it's not a proper trophy, but it's something to celebrate. We're back in the Premier League.
It's a Wembley win. We hadn't had a Wembley win for
exactly.
a long time.
Yeah, we've been at Wembley quite a lot. But that was the first time, and it's kind of like the hoodoo of the year before. The Fulham game was the worst I've ever felt at a football game. To kind of exercise those demons was great as well. But it was kind of like the other side of it was like, well, let's not over-celebrate. We're Aston Villa. We're better than that. And it's like, because that generation has seen us win proper things. But for like John, who interviewed Cash the other day, he started supporting Villa when like Lambert was here. He's seen nothing. So for the fact that there's so many people passionate about Villa of an age that are under, I don't know, 23, 24, just put myself above that bracket. I had the O'Neill era at least.
Yeah,
like the 2020, we almost did things.
Nearly meant. I feel that's what we've always been, to be fair.
Exactly,
nearly,
yeah,
but I just
exactly
felt
that.
Emery, I don't care what anyone says. Not the Villa fans wouldn't go against it, but the outside football world, I don't care what anyone says. He is a winner.
Yeah,
and I don't
know how you dispute that.
No, but people do, because people will just, they'll go Arsenal time, and I think he didn't win the league at PSG. And people are like, you don't win the league at PSG. I mean, to be fair, you should win the league at PSG. But if you don't win the league at PSG, it's like you're completely just written off as hopeless.
Yeah.
And he had that combined with the Arsenal thing. I think he's on a mission as well. I think he's quietly very, very driven to just prove this whole country wrong. And so far, he's doing it. Now, Villa are getting a lot of praise in the national media now. Emery's getting a lot of praise in the national media as well. And I just love, like, with what I do, like I do all football, but I get pulled in for Villa things as well, obviously, as well, because I am a Villa fan. I love that I can go on and be like positive about Villa, and if people say nonsense about Villa now, I can put them right about it. Like the fan base took a bit of a panning for wanting Gerrard out, because he's obviously got friends in the media and stuff like that. Like, we're not supposed to be talking about this yet, but anyway, I'll tell the story now because it feels like we've segued into it. Like I went on this is when the day Gerrard got sacked. Like I went on to BBC's Monday Night Club podcast, I think it is. So I was on video with it was me, Mika Richards, Glenn Murray, and Glenn Hoddle. So we were all I maybe got the order wrong, because there must have been a presenter there as well, in fairness. So we were talking, and Glenn Hoddle said something first and just completely really like got it wrong. Was like saying the Villa fan base were basically a disgrace for wanting Gerrard out. He needed more time. He'd have got it right, basically. And I started off by just saying, I completely disagree with that. What you've just said basically is not correct. Gerrard was taking Villa down. The club have done the right thing. He should have gone earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know, took his headphones off, slammed them down. He literally didn't speak for the rest of the time I was on there. He just sat there with his arms folded, because I dared to not stand up against him, but because I'd gone against Gerrard. But so I actually in some ways enjoyed that time, because I think the fan base was getting panned in the media, and we've got to have a bit of time because Gerrard's so pally with so many people.
Who better are you going to get than Steven Gerrard?
It was stuff like that, and I just love the fact that Emery's come in and just completely shown that actually the Villa fans were right, because if you get the right manager, this club can go somewhere.
Yeah, I keep mentioning the Cash thing. Obviously, I want people to go and watch that. And it's
Did you interview Cash, actually? I wasn't sure that you had.
Just 15 minutes with Cash.
You not mentioned it.
Yeah, it was really good, actually. It's kind of like a minor point in there about like the attention to detail from Emery, where he said about, have you watched it yet?
No. Okay. When did it come out?
It only came out this morning.
Yeah, I've been en route here, haven't I?
Yeah. So there was a point in there where Matty said, my pal Matty said, when they're doing like the meetings and the prep for the upcoming game, say they got Liverpool at home, then Crystal Palace away, and then Everton at home. For the Everton at home prep, they don't watch the Crystal Palace game, the game immediately before it. They watch the last home game. So they'd watch Liverpool again. Because they're basically playing two different ways, home and away. So you would kind of think, well, let's look back at the last game, Crystal Palace. We won 2-0. What went right? Let's do that again against Everton. I mean, maybe they watch bits of both anyway, but if they're playing at home, they watch the previous home game, which I thought was interesting, something that you wouldn't really think about. But again, it's that attention to detail.
It's just meticulous, isn't it?
He thinks that, like, Matty didn't explain it very well.
It's called Casher.
Yeah, Casher didn't explain it very well, that, like, Emery wants it to be like it's about the feeling as well. It's not necessarily just about
the crowd, doesn't
the tactics and stuff. Yeah,
connecting with the crowd, like, playing in a certain way.
We're playing at Villa Park again, so let's watch a Villa Park game because it's the whole kind of package. It's not just about what we did. Yeah.
Like there was a point where like I sit in the whole end upper, obviously. So when usually the way it's been my whole life is they'll attack the Holt in the second half.
Yeah,
I love that. Like the few games this season where they'd be like the Newcastle game, I think of Man U's first game, where they make the conscious decision to, we're going to attack the Holt first, because actually attacking the Holt and harnessing that atmosphere is part of our game plan today.
Yeah, gets you ahead
Newcastle
early,
game, I think that arguably, I've been a lot of games at Villa Park, arguably the best I've ever seen Villa play, like the most complete performance. Like I think, obviously people will go back to that Liverpool game in lockdown, but we weren't there, and it was a freak. You're not beating Liverpool 7-2 ever again. That Newcastle game, Newcastle had won 5 in a row at the time as well and were going really, really well. We obliterated them in that first half. We completely blew them away. How it was only 1-0, I don't know. But you're right about, it was just the fans were part of the game plan, attacking the Holt early, how many early goals did we score from attacking the Holt in the first half?
Graphic art goals under 15 minutes and Villa always high up. Yeah.
In fact, it wasn't just the Holt end, was it? But specific games, they want to attack the Holt first, because that's part of the game plan.
Yeah.
And that's what I find that, like, what manager comes up with that? Like, no, surely, I don't know enough about whether Pep does things like that or Klopp.
You hear things about Arteta doing things that, again, get kind of the mickey taken out on social. Like, there's a dog at the training ground, and they played.
I like stuff like that.
They played You'll Never Walk Alone at the training ground before they go to Anfield. But again, it's psychology. It's all little things.
That. Brentford have got a bench at their training ground, and they have an old guy who's trained in psychology and whatnot. He sits on the bench with a dog. And the players can they don't have to. Players can
Is this true?
Players can just sit and have a chat with him.
Okay.
Pet the dog. Like, for me, the dogs anyway, brilliant.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's why I should have brought Tebow with me today. That's absolutely. But you know what I mean? There's little advantages that you're right. Sometimes from the outside, people will take the mickey out of, but actually, how well have Brentford done?
People take the mickey when Arsenal go to Liverpool and get battered, and they go, "Oh, look, they were trying to build up this atmosphere." Blah blah.
I mean, I did think that You'll Never Walk Alone thing, playing in training, was a little bit strange.
Yeah, but if it works,
I mean, it didn't work on that occasion, did it? But I think whatever he's doing, is working, and I think he has got a human side to him as well. And he's very clever. Like every interview after a game, he says he starts with the same thing.
Fans
he mentions the fans.
Yeah.
He's made the fans like a look. I'd hate to hark back to Gerrard, but it's relative because he's the man who came before him.
Yeah,
there was nothing like that. It was just a mumbo jumbo, a load of rubbish coming out of his mouth after every game.
People don't say mumbo jumbo.
No, I don't know why. I've never said it before. I don't know why I've said it then. But do you know what I mean? Like, he's coming out with absolute rubbish. Like, say, it's on me.
Yeah, my favourite was Chelsea should wipe the floor with us.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah,
he's like,
times.
we're not far away. We just need these moments of magic. Oh, what's that? I remember my old man saying something like that. Footballers, not magicians, but he'd come out and say that every game. Like, just give the ball to Coutinho and see if he can score from 30 yards. Like, it's just rubbish. But what we've got now is so good, and I think it's such a special time, and it doesn't happen often. When you feel like the whole club is in harmony and pulling in the same direction.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Villa have got now. Everyone is pulling in that in that same direction. You just don't get people losing their mind about transfers on Twitter. That's just the norm, isn't it? But there is that trust there. There is that harmony. There is that everyone is moving in the same direction. Even like just like the players. The players seem like likeable human beings.
Yeah, Matty Cash, lovely guy.
Keep mentioning Matty Cash. I interviewed Matty Cash once actually, just in case you didn't know. Yeah, for 3 years before you, I think it was. that was for Villa, to be fair, or for Villa's affiliates. But yeah, but you know what I mean? Cash, Mings, McGinn. Look at the improvement in McGinn. Like he was getting hung out to dry by Gerrard. Fans were giving him abuse. He wasn't playing well. He'll know himself. He wasn't playing well. But you got to give someone the tools to go out and do the job. And McGinn was just being put in asked to do things that just weren't right for him.
Yeah.
And he was suffering as a consequence. Like I was at the Big Villa sleep out. So I was at the Big Villa sleep out with Tails, and this is the biggest name drop podcast there's ever been between the two of us, by the way. And McGinn and Josh Feeney came to say hello to everyone that was doing the sleep out. Now I'd met McGinn before at things for Luke Roper, and he's like buoyant, like bubbly, like he's a fun guy. You could see like he was just buzzing with everything, buzzing being a footballer. It felt like you could sense that, like, and I'm no expert in psychology. I need to be like a guy on the bench at Brentford, but you know, it felt like that he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. And I don't know John McGinn personally, but he just didn't feel like the John McGinn that I would expect to be speaking to.
Yeah.
But I bet if he's at the sleep out again in this year, I bet he's completely different because the players are given the tools that they need to go out and do their job.
Sounds very simplistic, doesn't it? That's what it needs.
And everything's in harmony. And that's a wonderful place to be when you're a football fan and you support your team. And to feel like you're the envy of people a little bit as well. Like people will be looking at the way Villa are operating, the way they're doing the business, the squad they're building, the manager they've got, they're in Europe. People will be looking at that and be jealous. Like I've looked at teams so many times over the years and been like, oh God, even Brentford.
Yeah.
Like after home games when they're celebrating, when we were rubbish under Gerrard last season, I'm watching them and thinking, why are they better than us?
Yeah, someone makes a signing, you think, oh, that's a clever signing. Like I wish we did stuff like that.
Tillerman's
like
on a free.
Yeah.
Like you just think,
if West Ham had signed him, I'd have been.
I thought he'd go there to be. I thought that'd be where he'd go to. Where he goes to. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it can change very quickly. Like Leicester, Southampton have been the envy of teams in like fairly recent past. They were the model, and they're both in the Championship now. Yeah. So it can change, but I think this manager is the game changer.
Yeah, he's the
complete game changer.
He's the key. I think there'd be times where you could have a spell of 6 games and you lose 4, and with lesser managers, you'd be thinking something he might need to change. Not the manager, but he needs to change his tactics, or something's not quite right. He needs to be dropped, or you start kind of putting your opinion onto it as a supporter. Whereas, not that I'm just going to be like, oh yeah, just let Emery do what he wants. Like I'm kind of just going to stay away from having an opinion. But like, if we did go through a spell of losing, I wouldn't see that as like we need to kind of rip up the plan and start again. It's like just everyone calm down and let things kind of progress as they should do. It kind of feels a little bit like the way we've got into Europe early, getting promoted before we were ready, kind of thing.
If we'd gone up the year before.
No, like even in the year we did go up, like making that massive leap into the playoffs. We were all expecting January 2019 probably going to be in the Championship again. So to have that kind of quick turnaround in the second half of the season and go on and be promoted as well was like, we didn't expect this to happen this quickly. We thought it'd be the season after probably.
Yeah.
Europe's the same. We were kind of thinking, yeah, Emery's done well, but to get to Europe's still a big ass. Like, let's have a nice end to this season and go hard for next year, the one coming up now. So we're kind of ahead of schedule in some aspects to get into Europe. And obviously if we go all the way and win it or win a trophy, again, that probably comes a little bit earlier than people expect. So I thought, like you, Emery's going to need a couple of transfer windows here to get things going and kind of shift out the deadwood and bring players in who knows his style of play. And that was the style of play was the first instance where you have that trust in the manager, where we're kind of sitting there going, oh, that was a risky passing out from the back, wasn't it? Oh, what's Tyrone Mings doing? What's Martinez doing? Like, oh, I don't like this.
But now you love it.
But then you go, oh, yeah, just sit back, relax. They're fine. They've got it under control.
Yeah, there's a few. I feel like I was learning stuff that I felt was positive, even when at the start when we weren't doing great. So I remember the reactions of the whole end. The first time we were playing out from the back, people were losing their minds.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? This is a disaster. And that Arsenal game, we scored a goal from playing out the back. The Coutinho goal was my favourite goal of the season. I think it was such good football. It involved a new left back, Moreno, as well. So you could see, I didn't think we needed a left back at the time, but I was like, oh, okay, this guy's good. I can see why we've done this, because he's completely changed the way that we can play now. So that game, even though we lost, I remember tweeting, and I was getting Arsenal fans having a go at me afterwards, saying like, I'm going to walk away from today knowing that, yes, we were the plucky losers, We did well against the team that's top of the league, but we were the plucky losers that at some time in the future, under Emery, we aren't going to be plucky losers.
Yeah.
I didn't for the life of me think it would be as soon as it came. Some of the results that we got were absolutely brilliant. And another time, which was before the Arsenal game, I remember being sat at Sky doing the transfer shows, talking. Villa got the 5 minutes at the end because we weren't doing very much, and because I was on there, they throw Villa into the running order so I can talk about them. I remember saying the words, Villa are in a position where they're not going to get relegated. They're not going to get into Europe either.
Yeah,
so it's just a case now of feeling out the squad. And
Yeah.
like, a few people, to be fair, replied to me saying, we can get Europe.
I remember getting the same in YouTube comments like, don't
And I
go
was-
off the season. It's like,
I was
come
like,
on, we're miles away.
it's going to be a bitty season. He's
Yeah,
going to just
yeah.
be taking a look at what he's done. So that was the second thing I remember about in times when we weren't doing great. And the third, when we were doing a little bit better, is almost in some ways, not the players are meaningless, because that's stupid, but that Newcastle game again, Den Donker hadn't played for months. Kamara must have been Kamara that was out.
He
Den
came
Donker-
back, didn't he, and then went again, Kamara.
Den Donker came in for that. I think we just beat Chelsea, hadn't we, potentially?
Yeah.
Den Donker came into midfield in that game, having not played for months, and he was literally like seamless, like he'd been there every week for the entirety of the season. And that again just tells you how good this manager is.
I remember me and John did a podcast months ago now, February, March maybe, and I think I was sat at my house and I was kind of like plotting out the future on the desk. I was like, all this is good happening now. If recruitment is good here and we appoint the right people and whatnot, if you look further along down that timeline, like these little moments ahead, if you got to have a crystal ball, I don't see how there isn't silverware for Villa at the end of all that. I know football is not inevitable and things change very quickly, but Villa are doing so many good things, and the recruitment this summer in terms of Monchi and all the people that have come into the club as well, on paper and all the things you read sounds like it's all going to be very good. I don't know how that club and that infrastructure doesn't deliver a trophy at some point. It has to.
But even the off the pitch stuff, like you probably won't want to talk about this stuff. Even Chris Heck coming in, the badge stuff. Like, obviously in a period of transition with the crest at the moment. But I like that he's come in and he's decided that the crest potentially on the shirt now isn't right. I like that he's not just gone with it.
Took the foot off the gas.
He's like, actually, I'm going to take a look at this for a year, and maybe in a year we do something different. Because cards on the table, I don't like the badge that was chosen. I think it was a poor process, and I think the two badges that were there, the round one was always going to get chosen because the other one wasn't very good. I just didn't like the whole process with it anyway, with the badge. But I like that we've got someone who's come into the commercial side of things even and has taken a look at that and just said, well, I'm not going to win. I'm not going to pay for all this branding now around the ground and change the badge if we're not going to have it in a year's time, because I don't think it's right. We're going to review it. I just think like I'm saying, everything feels like it's well thought out now. Like they're heading in the right direction.
What do you think? Because obviously, like again, you've seen some good times with Villa in years gone by in your childhood. What's kind of the ceiling for Emery and Villa, do you think? Because we say things like Villa are never going to compete for a title. We're not going to win the Champions League. Getting into the Champions League would be a success. Like what? Again, like managers' shelf life at clubs is very, very small, isn't it? You might get 2 or 3 years. I would love, and every club obviously wants their manager to be there for a long time. I would love Emery to be here for 7, 8, 9, 10 years.
I think it's possible. If you give him what he wants, it's possible.
It is possible. So what can be achieved here? Can Villa win Premier League titles? Can we compete that far ahead, or is it just top 6 in the old FA Cup? Do you know what I mean? I'll absolutely settle for that, but
I don't think there is a ceiling. People are going to say, typical Villa fans, like they've won a few games and they're getting carried away. But look, the Premier League undoubtedly is the strongest league. And Man City are the strongest team in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
I look at what he did with Villarreal. Villarreal have got no right to be getting to the semi-finals of the Champions League and competing with some of the teams that they beat and that they were competing with. But Emery, got them, won the Europa League, got them to the Champions League semi-final. Now Villa are arguably a bigger team than Villarreal, but they compete in a very different league landscape because it's Real Madrid, Barcelona, and to an extent Atleti in Spain. In the Premier League, there's probably 7, 8 really strong teams now, I would say. But I do think you've got Man City, but I think they're in a league of their own now.
Yeah.
After that, teams like Chelsea and Tottenham have just had horrific seasons. I think that can happen to anyone in that league now.
Yeah.
I think Arsenal, just because they finished second this season, doesn't mean that they're going to. I do think they'll do well, but there's no guarantees that they're going to just continue.
They could finish sixth next season, for example.
They're in the Champions League now. They might go far in the Champions League, and then they probably end up prioritising that because they've got to a semi-final one. So I think Man City are in a league of their own. I don't think the gap now between Villa and those other teams is huge.
And I think there was a stage when. Certainly, when we were relegated, there's a whole division between us. But when you get back in the Premier League and we have Tottenham on the opening day, and they just had their new stadium, haven't they? Maybe the season before.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're miles off Tottenham. Massive infrastructure, huge stadium, the players where we can compete. And I always go back to when we're at the O'Neill times, it was us, Man City, Spurs to kind of one of us will break through. Obviously, Man City get a takeover, go miles ahead. But us and Tottenham are kind of level pecking around that time at 08, 9, 10.
I'm going to have to correct you on level. It's level pegging.
Level pegging. What did I say?
Pecking.
Level pecking.
Yeah.
A similar pecking order.
Spending too much time with your missus. Yeah. Bit of level pecking.
Level pegging. Spurs, Man City, and Villa are around the same place together, but we obviously are on a massive downward trajectory in the middle 2010s. Spurs get a Champions League final at some stage, and you think, well, we're miles behind them. I would rather be. Obviously, again, this all comes with the caveat that Spurs could have a great season and we could have a bad season.
I do think Spurs will pick up under the new manager of Venice, but
I do, but I would.
Difficult.
And again, there's going to be some bias here, but I would rather what Villa are doing than what Spurs are doing.
I just think
there's so much uncertainty around Spurs with the ownership. What's Harry Kane doing?
Yeah,
Postecoglou could do great, but he could also have finished 10th.
He's got to build a team. We've already got that
That's
team.
What I mean.
Like Spurs, it's Harry Kane, isn't it?
Yeah,
he's the main man. Villa for years, Jack Grealish. Villa now, it's the manager, and they've got a team. They've got a team underneath that. I don't think we've got I would say we've got a star player. I think
we've got
the star man is the manager, and we've got a good team.
Yeah, there's no one player that we rely on where you think if he doesn't play, Villa lose today.
Because Watkins is pretty much the only striker, although Archer's come back now, and I think he will compete and be a really effective player for Villa this season.
Yeah.
If we'd lost Watkins last season, that would have been an absolute disaster because there's no one to come in and replace what he does. The goalkeeper Martinez he's probably the biggest name in the Villa team now, isn't he? Because he's won the World Cup and done what he's done in his career. If anyone's the star, it's probably Martinez.
He'd be the one. If he didn't play, you'd think we're in trouble.
He's the one that kids all know. Kids all over the world. Aston Villa, Emi Martinez. But I think in general football terms, the star man of Villa is the manager.
And I get the kind of reservations that if he does leave for a better...
I honestly don't think he will.
Yeah, but I mean, if he's plucked away by a bigger club...
I still don't think he'd go. I don't think he's a man of integrity and honour, and I think if someone came in for him in the next few years, he'd look at what he's been given by Villa. I think he'd stay.
He's not going to be forever, though.
No, of course not.
But when you build your club around one individual and all of his staff are with him, if there is a situation where he does go... You think, well, what's left for Villa? All the coaching staff go. The director of football is linked with him. Does he go as well? Like, he's signed 11 players over the last couple of years. Do they all think, well, I only signed because of Unai Emery? So I get the kind of reservations about having one individual and it'd be the manager.
It would be the same if Pep left Man City, wouldn't it?
But also, if your star player is the main man, if he goes, you're in the same kind of boat anyway.
Look what happened to us under O'Neill. Every year we'd lose a player. And eventually that became unsustainable and we lost O'Neill and we couldn't rebuild from the case of losing players. We lost Grealish, replaced him in quite an odd way by buying three players, none of which played in Jack Grealish's position. So that was an interesting transfer strategy. In fairness, looking back, wasn't it? But we lost him and we couldn't really recover from it.
Yeah.
Like if someone was to, at the moment, the biggest person leaving would be the manager.
Yeah, but like you said, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think he could be here for 5
and that's not being disrespectful
easily
to the players because they've done unbelievable things, and it's special that every single one of them has taken Emery's methods on board, and he's got that buy-in, and they've all bought in, and they've all improved like that. So the players are important, but Emery is that overseer. He is the overarching main man at Villa.
Do you feel like Villa are a club that needs that kind of figurehead? Like a Liverpool have Klopp and Man United had Ferguson, like they were the club. I
think ideally every club would have that, wouldn't they?
But there's a lot of kind of this modern approach that like Brentford, Brighton, like we sign the players. If the manager goes, we prick someone else who does the same kind of style, and we go again. But
I still think ideally you want to have that consistency. Ideally, you'd have a manager there for 10 years. Klopp, what Liverpool have done with Klopp, and they've had success. They've probably not won quite as much as they should have done.
Because
that's
of Man
down
City.
to Manchester City. It's not down because Klopp's a bad manager or Liverpool are terrible. They're just unfortunate they've come up against this absolute juggernaut. I don't know, if they've been getting like 90 odd points and not winning the league, that's you'd be fuming as a Liverpool fan. Absolutely livid. But they've won the Champions League under Klopp. They've won a league title, which they've been desperate to do. He's been there a long time now.
Yeah.
How long has he been there? He must be coming up to a decade.
8 or 9 years,
Yeah, he's been there a long time. I think that's the dream, and I'm hoping that's what we've got with Emery.
I want to finish quickly on the. We're going to talk about you actually and your kind of career path, just as like an update on the last time we did it.
Embarrassing.
But the last kind of Villa related point was transfers, because like we said earlier, people love it. How many do you think we'll need? How many do you think we'll get? What position is the kind of area we need the most? How do you assess the squad overall? I'd
be surprised if there's any more than 3 more coming.
Okay.
We've signed 2 because we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. We don't need a total rebuild. That's not what's needed. Okay, me and you are messing around on Football Manager at the moment, and we'll probably end up signing about 10 players. But Football Manager, as much as I love it, is not real life. That's not how you build. And I think I personally think they need a couple of attacking players. I could probably take or leave whether they sign a right back or not.
Yeah.
At the moment, because I think they've got players that can play there, and I think because of the unique nature of Emery's tactics, not having another right back other than Cash that bombs on, I don't think that's necessarily a problem, because I think the way he plays, I think Konsa, Chambers, I'm satisfied with that. I think you'll see Konsa play European games in particular at right back. So then, because obviously we've got these other great centre halves as well. But I think in the attacking positions, Bailey and Bardell, I like them both. They're inconsistent.
Yeah.
And unless they're sort of in a certain price bracket, aren't they? Which is still a hell of a lot of money. Villa have gone from El Ghazi and Trezeguet were in a certain price bracket, and they were inconsistent. Buendia and Bailey have come in who are in a different price bracket.
Still not quite right.
Not quite right, but probably delivering a little bit more. Though El Ghazi did deliver, and Trezeguet scores some important goals. But in a consistency basis, Buendia is probably more consistent. And we're now looking at players in the price bracket beyond them, and that's the kind of players that we need in the attacking
if they're
positions.
Inconsistent as well? You go up again.
Keep going until we get Grealish back for 100 million, I guess. But you see what I mean? There's these different brackets of players. Obviously, Jack is at the top end of that for Manchester City, 100 million delivering performances every single week now for them. We're now exploring this market of the Diabys, maybe the Felixes on loan. If we could get those 2 in, I'd be delighted. Absolutely delighted. And we'll sign a backup goalkeeper from somewhere. I don't know who it will be.
Yeah.
But we'll sign a backup goalkeeper from somewhere.
Let's talk about you a little bit then. We've done 45 minutes or so on Aston Villa. It's good chat as well.
I felt like it was about 2 hours long. I thought we were there for ages talking about it.
We've been recording for 50 minutes, so by the time I cut out our rubbish from the start, about 45.
Okay.
Like I said, when we did a podcast in 2020, that video was titled Leaving the Villa View, and trying to get into doing this kind of work more often. I asked you in that, what's the end goal, or how would you feel satisfied by the work that you're doing? How much has changed since 2020? Because 3.5 years almost since that last show. There's been a lot happened since then. Obviously, you were doing the Villa View, you were doing the Athletic 1874. I think you've done 7 episodes when we did that. That's come and gone now as well. So do you want to just kind of recap the journey, I guess, of the last couple of years?
So obviously COVID came, which kind of put everything on the back burner, really. But actually, in a weird way, I don't know why, but COVID seemed to work quite well for me. It seemed to set things on the right track. So the Athletic, suddenly we were doing podcast interviewing ex-players and stuff at home, sat at home. I just moved house. We were sat doing these podcasts at home, interviewing Jedinak, Chester, Curtis Davis, Connor, people like that. So we did all that on 1874, which was just on the Athletic at the time. So I started doing that, and it was different doing that to doing the Villa View. So I think I started to learn a few things, and then Who Scored, which you're obviously a part of as well. You produce and edit that. I was lucky that Marty Lawrence was in charge of the podcast, Who Scored's weekly podcast, Edge of the Box, and he's a Villa fan, so he's aware of me. They probably at the time didn't want to spend too much money, so they didn't want to go and get in a proper presenter, a massive name, a proper presenter. So they asked me to do it, and again, working with Jonathan Wilson every week, who's like one of the top journos in the world, and certainly in the UK. Like, I learnt loads doing that, and I was lucky because The Athletic just seemed to like me.
Yeah.
Now, they had tons of podcasts going on at the time, so there was no real divine right for me to walk in and be doing extra stuff other than Villa, because they had tons of people doing podcasts for every club and various other things. But I'd spoken to one of the producers a few times about I was interested in maybe not doing something else. I didn't want to just do Villa, because I felt like I'd had more to give in talking about football, but I was kind of being pigeonholed as just being the Villa guy, which wasn't really what I wanted. So during the Euros, they'd made the decision to do a daily England podcast. So it's every single day. And because I'd been speaking to the producer and saying I wanted to do more, I think he maybe just got fed up of listening to me. But he
just give him what he wants.
The guy's called Tom. Like, he just decided to give me a chance, and I'd come up with a few ideas of things maybe that could work.
Yeah.
As an England podcast. So
then tell you what, producer loves that. Like,
yeah, I'd come up with a few things.
Is coming forward saying, "Oh, should we try this year?" Yeah, right then.
Yeah, I just kept I remember sending over like a little document of just a few ideas that I had about England and the Euros. So I remember at the time I was quite like, I'd got to a period of being a little bit disillusioned by it all, just feeling like this probably isn't going to happen. I don't want to be doing just like the job that. My job was fine, but I want to do something that I enjoy and that I'm passionate about. I don't want to do day-to-day thing that I'm not really massively interested in. I had kind of a little taste of things because I'd done Facebook Live for Villa with Tales for a year. So I had a taste of working in football, but I was getting close to like, this isn't happening. Like, I might just pack it all in and try and just find something else to do and be successful at, because I just don't feel like this is going the way I want it. And then literally, like, within the next, 48 hours, I got a phone call from Tom, that Athletic producer. I was driving, and he rang me, and he was like, "Oh, I've got some really good news for you." He's like, "This England show's been commissioned every single day during the Euros, and we want you to be a part of it." So I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll just pop up like once a week talking about England, which I was buzzing with that, to be fair. Like, that's fine. He was like, "Yeah, we want you to share hosting duties with Mark Chapman." He was like, "So you'll do 50%, and Mark Chapman or Trappers will do 50%. I was like, "Oh my God." I remember I took off the phone, I actually pulled over.
I was going to say, safe driving, 70 miles an hour tops, pulled over.
I pulled over, and I felt a bit like emotional, because I felt close to packing it in, really, because I just wasn't getting to where I wanted to be, and I felt like I had stuff to offer, but I just was like, if
no one gives you that opportunity, how do you do it? Yeah.
So I did that, but then obviously England did really well, which was helpful.
More
Got
shows
to the final, which
final,
became more shows, and because Chappers was doing BBC and 5 Live and stuff, he couldn't do as much as was expected. So I ended up probably hosting like 80% of those shows during the Euros, and I was like on a few with him as well as like a contributor, because I like to think of myself as being quite flexible. Like, I think I can do anything, but I can do both. I'm equally as comfortable like being the person who's answering the questions as I am being the person who's asking the questions.
It's the same for Villa as well. Like, you sitting on a Villa podcast and asking 20 questions is like a bit of a waste, because you could answer those 20 questions.
So I sat there, and like, even the ones I did with Chappers, I was like, just watching him, I was like in awe of just how easy he made it look. He's like chilling on his chair, like sat back, like it doesn't look like he's got anything in front of him, just relaxed, just like firing these questions out to all these top journos at The Athletic.
And you.
And me. Yeah, I was there as well. Because this was the other thing. Like, I'd obviously got used to working with Greg, but I kind of knew Greg anyway, and Greg was just like the Villa guy, wasn't he? That's bread and butter for me.
Yeah.
And I was suddenly thrust into doing these Athletic daily shows with, like, remember Sunday Supplement on Sky?
Yeah.
So I'm like working with people like Ollie Kay, who was like on that nearly every week, brilliant writer, and like David Ornstein. I'm with Matt Slater. I'm on with like all these serious people, and I'm just sat there thinking, I'm gonna open my mouth, and like they're gonna be like,
Who's this guy?
Who's this guy who sounds like a Peaky Blinder who's doing the interview? So I was a little bit nervous. I don't really get nervous about things. Certainly not now, I don't.
Yeah.
But I remember being a little bit like, what are these guys gonna think of me? But then I just thought, I'm not going to change what I do. I'm just going to handle it as I always would. And I think they quite liked that, because it wasn't not what they're used to doing. Like they used to probably been deadpan serious like the whole way through, but actually it was a bit more probably light-hearted than maybe the Athletic had,
Sorry, that
had wanted to be.
Brent for a
yeah,
second.
I know it does,
Yeah.
but it worked, and then from then like kind of skyrocketed really, because I managed to create a little bit of a name for myself, because the amount of people who were listening to that daily show was like hundreds of thousands probably, like absolutely ridiculous numbers. So I managed to create like a little bit of a name for myself, and then I was getting asked on like other things like Talk Sport to talk about England, rather than just
Villa guy,
rather than just Villa as a fan.
It
was like, here's the presenter of the Athletics Daily England podcast coming on and talking about England, and it was brilliant. And from then I ended up getting an agent, because I thought this is the time to now attack these things, because I'm in a good place after this. Like what, nothing might not happen off the back of this athletic stuff. So now's the time, while I'm doing this and sharing, hosting with someone like Chappers, now's the time to get an agent. So I ended up getting Refresh Sport represent me. They still represent me now. Leon Mann, they rep some really good people. Like reps Yaya Toure. For example, I like saying to people that I've got the same agent as Yaya Toure, but I think we've both got different strengths in the in the football world. And it went from there really. And at the end of the England run, the Athletic were really pleased with me, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to give you some more stuff to do next season." So basically, the season before the one just gone, ended up like sharing the podcast feed with Chappers. He'd present 2 of the shows a week, and I'd present the other 2, and then
big deal.
Yeah, it is. I'm never great at going back and reviewing things, because I'm always like focused on what's next and worrying about not standing still and trying to do more and do better things and improve myself. That's the way, from the Villa View even. That's just the way I've always been with it. But I was doing that twice a week, then obviously doing who scored. Suddenly I was getting asked on Sky to do like paper talk kind of shows, basically early in the morning, like talking about the papers in the morning. Asked someone from the Athletics. So from then I sort of transitioning away from being the Villa guy, but even though I was still doing the Villa stuff, because I was still doing 1874 with Greg for the Athletic at this point, and then doing 2 other shows for the Athletic. But I still just wanted to keep doing the Villa View, because I like talking about Villa. It got to the point then where I probably didn't need to do it, because I was using the Villa View as a vehicle to try and get into the mainstream media. That was what I wanted to do, but I just kept doing it, because
that was its purpose at one stage. We spoke about this in 2020. That's what I did.
Matt Lynch did the same. Like he's got a great job now. I've completely forgotten what the company's called. Matchroom. He works for Matchroom. Does some great stuff with their content and working for them. Tom Julian's gone off and done the Bundesliga. Like he's the head of international comms at the Bundesliga, which is quite frankly ridiculous. Like where did that come from? But he loves it. So we all kind of used it as vehicles, because it's hard to progress, because so many people want to do it. So I think you have to do stuff off your own back now. To get people always say to me like, "How did you do it?" But we're putting some
hard work
hours
and time,
doing stuff for free in our own time, like putting podcasts together and putting shows together that Villa fans liked. But also, like, I just learnt loads from doing that. And if I watched back the first show I did now, I imagine it would be awful and cringe, and maybe I'll do it one day, and it'd be absolutely embarrassing. But then
that's good though, because you want to see signs of progression.
I always thought I could do it, but I probably thought I was better than I was when we first started doing the Villa View.
Oh yeah, but that's a long time ago.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course, like I'm a million miles away now from what I was then in the way I speak. And
I was going to ask you, because I listened back to some of the 2021, and I feel like both of us spoke differently. I only listened to bits too, but do you feel like you're a better broadcast? Can't even say.
I don't think you are.
A better broadcaster now than you were 3 years ago.
100%. Like I always thought I could do some of the stuff that I'm doing now, but the reality is back then I wouldn't have been able to. So, like, having an agent does help, and they managed to speak to Sky. After I'd done a few bits and pieces for them, I'd been on a fair bit by that point, just doing generic stuff, and then if something happened with Villa, they'd get me on. But I was no longer coming on as a fan. It's not coming on as a broadcaster and Villa fan. And it was hard to get to that point, and that was the point I wanted to get to. But it's really hard to get to that point where you're not just seen as fan media. But in probably 2021, 22, that was when it started to turn for me. And then I think Sky liked what I'd done, and my agent spoke to them, and I was lucky to get selected to be on the transfer talk, the transfer shows, August last year, for the whole month doing them, and then again in January. I got a lot more shows in January than I got in my first stint in August, and then I'm obviously starting that again next week, doing 6 weeks there. And again, I've got a boatload of shows. I'm fortunate that the producer's given me quite a lot of shows to go on and sit around the Sky Sports News desk talking about football, which ultimately that has been what I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
Always wanted to work for Sky, always wanted to be sat around that desk at Sky Sports News. I remember doing it for the first time and bizarrely not nervous at all. Like live on Sky Sports News. Like, it's mad, really, when I think about it. But I remember being sat there thinking, right, even if I only do this now, this one time, no one can ever take that away from me. Like, I've achieved ultimately what I wanted to achieve. I found it like a great business to like work in. Like, met so many great people, know so many like brilliant people, and in some ways people like you're competing against.
Yeah.
In some ways for extra stuff. But I've got to say, the transfer team that I work on, every single one of them, like I love them to bits. Like he's like Unai Emery. He's harvested like such a really good team. Like he's got like a, you're gonna sure reply to this in some ways, but kind of got like a no dick policy. Like we're all just on the same page and we all get on and we all help the other one and we all want each other to do well in it, and it's brilliant. And like it's my favourite time of the year. Like I absolutely cannot wait to get back in Sky Sports News studio. And they're launching a new studio in the second week.
Oh, nice.
I think as well. So I'll be a part of like sitting around this new fancy studio that they've got. And again, just like learning things. Like the first time I did it, it's like talkback.
Yeah.
For the first time, I'd never used talkback. I'm used to like doing a podcast and a producer being in my ear and just saying, "Oh, wrap this bit up now," or just message me on the chat when you're doing it from home saying, "I'll wrap up now." But getting used to that was like, I remember the first time I did it, we had like a rehearsal, and I was thinking, "Oh my god, I'm gonna struggle with this." You're trying to put a point across, but you've got someone in your ear like talking about cameras moving, and let's cut to camera 2 now, and talking to the main presenter, because I'm obviously a panelist in that, and thinking, I'm never going to be able to do this. But it's amazing what your brain can do.
Yeah, the thought of that I can't.
But you would be able to do it.
I probably wouldn't.
No, but you would.
I probably wouldn't.
You would be able to do it. You just kind of like tune it out and listen to it when you need to, and it doesn't throw you off at all. It's really, really weird, like having the earpiece in and having those people talking to you. It's quite bizarre, but yeah, I love it. And like I say, that is my favourite time of the year, my favourite work, and I honestly can't wait to do it again. Like, I'm really passionate about Sky Sports News and Sky in general, like, and you know, hopefully some more stuff will happen. We've had conversations about doing other things. We've had some difficulties with contracts and whatnot and stuff in recent weeks, but you know, that's coming to an end now. So you know, I feel in a really good place now to crack on and go and do what like things that like. The end of last season, I was doing Forest press conferences and Leicester press conferences and interviewing footballers for Sky Sports News, and that's what I want to do, a mix of things. Like, I like being sat around the desk, but I also like going out and interviewing people. Like, I remember the one day, like I did Forest in the morning, went to the training ground instead of the ground, which was a great start. Did that. And luckily, they're quite close together.
Yeah.
So I did Forest in the morning with Steve Cooper. Just like what a lovely bloke.
Yeah.
What a lovely guy. It's like my first time ever doing a press conference, and I'm thinking like, I'm opening up a Premier League football podcast. A Premier League football press conference. Here, like I never thought I'd be doing that.
Not for your club either. You'd think if it was for Villa, you kind of go, well, I've been the Villa guy.
Doing the other clubs in some ways. I think it's better in. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to do Villa as well, but you know, Forest and Leicester, like Leicester. I went to Leicester. Their training ground's a joke.
Yeah, unreal.
I can't believe they're in the Championship.
Yeah,
like
problems for Leicester.
I did Brendan Rodgers' last ever pre-match press conference for Leicester, so I did him. And Leicester and Forest both lost that weekend. And then there was rumours that Cooper was going to get the sack as well. I was like, I'm the Grim Reaper of press conferences there. Like, Rodgers has got the sack. Cooper could get the sack.
Maybe stay away from Villa, actually.
Yeah, I was like, I am the Grim Reaper here. But yeah, I loved that variety and like just being involved in the lead up to like a Premier League weekend, and then I was still doing the athletic previews as well, general Premier League stuff at that point as well. I was like, I feel in it here.
Yeah, because if you're doing like a Who Scored preview and an athletic preview, and then you go to a presser, then you're doing a Villa View show on a weekend or whatever, you kind of go, my week here is full up of doing the things I want to do. Like, this is what I've been building towards.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not very good at looking back, but when I'm talking to you now, like some of the stuff that's coming out of my mouth that's amazing, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you
if you'd have offered me that 5-6 years ago, I'd have snapped your hand off for it.
Do you ever struggle with imposter syndrome? Or have you ever experienced that? I feel like Diary of a CEO all of a sudden now.
Yeah. the bit, I don't think imposter syndrome, because ultimately I believe in myself. And like I said to you, I think I can do. I think you can throw me into any like environment with football media, and I think I can do it. Maybe not commentary. I think I struggle with that actually. But you know what I mean? Talking about football, you could put me anywhere. You said to me, now I've got to do a live podcast talking about Premier League. Nothing in front of me. I can do it. Like, I don't like notes.
Yeah.
I think I'm better when I don't have notes and talking about things. I think it's more natural, and I'm confident enough in my ability to think on my feet.
Yeah.
And talk about anything. Like, there was a time I went on TalkSport with Max Rushton, and I was told I was just previewing the Villa game. And suddenly it was like we were previewing every game that was on the Sunday, and I didn't know that was coming, but I actually loved that.
And that's so a lot of people.
Yeah, it probably would, but I'm confident enough that if you ask me to speak eloquently about, like, I can speak as eloquently about Burnley or Forest or whoever than I will be able to about Villa.
Yeah.
That's my belief in myself, and I watch a lot of football, I read a lot of stuff. I feel like I've got a feel of what's going on at each club, and I think that's a positive. And I think a lot of people say, a lot of producers and stuff say this to me. They like me because I'm quite unique. Like, there isn't many Birmingham accents knocking around, and I try and, I sound like David Brent here, but I try and combine knowledge with humour. Try and put it across. Try and be a little bit funny and have a laugh and stuff whilst I'm doing it, and people seem to like that. So I'm pretty fortunate. The thing I struggle with the most is, like, some months you can think, oh, I've cracked this here.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm doing work every day, like calls every day, phones blowing up, people want me on this, people want me on that. It's when you have the quiet times, that's when I find it really, really hard, and it starts to creep in. It's like, and you follow all your friends on Instagram and Twitter, and you see what they're doing, and you think, God, they're like working every day, like doing all this cool stuff, and I'm sat with my dog watching the US Office. Like, what's going on? I've watched 100 times. Like, what's like? I was like, I'm not doing as well as I should be. Like, ultimately, I still believe in myself, but I think I'm not doing as much as I should be. I'm not doing well. Why am I not doing well? And is it for this reason? Is it for that reason? That's the bit that I probably find the hardest, I would say.
Yeah, that's working for yourself, isn't it? That's that kind of freelance approach.
It's
sometimes it's busy,
want
sometimes
to do,
you're not.
Like, I'm desperate to do well. I'm desperate to, like, I feel like I've cracked it to an extent, but I'm desperate for more. I'm still not really where, I'm a lot closer, but I'm still not really where I want to be.
Yeah,
I'm not there, and I've obviously, we haven't spoken about it, but the Athletic are making some changes in the summer. I've had a great 3.5 year run there, like, no complaints from me whatsoever, but they're cutting budgets and changing how they're doing things. So I'm bracketing myself in with Chappers here, which is very kind. Me and Chappers are gone. Like, we won't be doing it anymore next season, and the Athletic has been a constant in my life for like 3.5 years. Like, I've had quite a turbulent few years in my personal life. A lot of that's down to myself. I've got no one else to blame. But during all that, I've had this consistency of knowing that, like, 2-3 times a week, I'm going to be doing the Athletic, and it's been a huge part of my life because they gave me a chance. And losing that, I was a bit worried about how I may react mentally to that. But it was weird because I posted on socials that I was leaving, and I'm not bitter about it at all because I've had a great run with them, like, no complaients from me.
Because in reality, that could have been a 3-month thing, and they go, right, well, you've had a good run, let's try somebody else.
I love that company. Like, I love reading their stuff every day. They've no complaints from me. Like, they were so good to me, gave me so many, like, really good opportunities. They made me, essentially. I look at it as.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing the stuff I'd done now if that hadn't have been for the Athletic. So I'm grateful. Like, but you see sometimes people leave and are a bit bitter about it. Like, I couldn't be further from the truth. Like, I'm not bitter about it at all. Like, my time has come to an end, and good luck to them, and I hope whatever they go on and do, I hope it's successful. But I was worried, like, where that would leave me. But actually, like, from even just doing the tweet saying I was leaving, it's like people just assume that you don't need work because you're doing the Athletic like 3 times a week.
Yeah.
But I've loads of people messaging me saying, oh, we've got some stuff coming up. Like, I've had some really positive meetings in the last few weeks with big companies and stuff. So I'm hopeful that actually it can be turned into a positive.
So you still mentioned doing the Villa View as a hobby. There are some changes there as well. Do you want to explain, again, when this video comes out, hopefully you've kind of broadcast this publicly anyway.
If I haven't, I haven't.
If you haven't, you have an exclusive for us. Just tell me a little bit about those changes. because this is kind of not important to me, but like I was there at the beginning of that as well. So I've got like a vested interest here at least.
I mean, you couldn't have left your baby any quicker, by the way. First time I'd been offered anything, you were gone. Didn't care.
That with a real life baby.
You were like, here you go. Here's the keys. You and Tom are in charge now.
You know what's interesting about that actually? I was going to bring this up based off our last chat. When you said before about like COVID and the lockdowns being like a good thing, obviously the health side of it. Obviously,
it wasn't brilliant for that.
From a work point of view, you taking over the Villa View just before that, basically. It was September to the March. And it was kind of this pressure of like, well, who films the stuff for us? Who edits it?
It was a blow you going. It was kind of like,
we'll just do it all online now and we'll live stream it. We don't really need an editor in the sense of chopping clips together. It's just we need someone to press the buttons for us, but we'll do everything live because everyone's doing it like that. So again, weirdly, that came at a good time because if you had to have pressure of who's the cameraman, who's going to put those clips together, or we've got a shoot coming up, who goes to do that for us?
Yeah, it's hard.
Doing everything online, again, kind of not save the Villa View, but
it did. It was gone. Yeah. Because it was gone.
Yeah.
So when we last did this, it kind of felt like the right time to end it, really, because Tom was moving to Germany. We didn't know that COVID was coming and that we were going to be able to do online stuff because everyone was doing in person.
Yeah.
That was what you were doing. We did a bit of online, in fairness. We were trailblazers. We were
that's true.
We were ahead of the game, actually.
Yeah.
But we were doing the podcast every week in the booth in person.
Yeah.
It looked good and we had good facilities because we were lucky because we were able to use Sky booths. So we did that. But Tom was going to Germany. I was doing 1874 for the Athletic, and it was like, well,
you're already talking about Villa somewhere.
If I'm doing, people are more likely to watch the Villa View because they're familiar with it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who watch the Villa View aren't going to listen to 1874 because they've already heard what my opinions are.
Yeah.
Although it was different because I was hosting with Greg, it felt like it wasn't going to carry over, and ultimately I was getting paid and building a career through doing the Athletic, so I wanted people to listen to that over watching the Villa View. So Tom and I made the decision to call it, and then COVID came. And then a guy called Adam Bates, who everyone will know well now, the producer, sometimes on air, sometimes not. He got in touch and said, I think there's an opportunity here with COVID. Every game's going to be live on the telly. You can jump on straight after and do shows. I've got a way of doing this. And to be fair, Adam's created like this really clever back end and stuff. He was just a viewer of the Villa View. He didn't want it to go. Tom was in Germany, so he offered us a way back of doing it, and we thought, okay,
we'll try it.
We'll try it, and it worked. Then we discovered within about 3 months that Tom actually wasn't allowed to do the Villa View and had been doing it. The Bundesliga had like rules, and Tom wasn't allowed to be doing it. So he rang me one day and was like, yeah, I can't do it anymore. We just sorted out like sponsors like Luke and Purity sponsoring the shows. But really then the Villa View just became like me and then all these other people that had their own channels, didn't have their own channels, well-known people on Twitter. So we just carried on doing it in that way.
Like for fun, basically.
Yeah, for fun. Like it's not unusual that you'll see me on Villa on Tour. It's not unusual that you'll see Max on the Villa View and things like that. Neil's obviously got his own channel. Ty does spaces did spaces on Twitter. Omar was trying to do his own podcast as well. So everyone had these podcasts, but it was just a case of they'd come on and have a chat with me because we were lucky that the Villa View was the first one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The first YouTube channel anyway. Mum's obviously was doing podcasts before, but the Villa View was the first YouTube channel. And when you're the first at doing something, there's advantages to doing that. So they were like buzzing to come on the Villa View, and then I've just kept doing it for years, really, as a hobby. It makes a little bit of money because we've got sponsors and stuff. It keeps me doing Villa stuff on YouTube, which I was keen to do because ultimately as much as I want to be a broadcaster and things like that, I'm a Villa fan. I'm a season ticket holder. Like I've had my same seat for 30 years now. Like I still go every week. So
and ultimately, those things you do in your own time, you hear a lot of things when you do stuff for free. It's like, well, you're doing it for exposure. You're doing it to try and open doors and new opportunities. But when you've already got the opportunities with Sky, who scored at the Athletic, it's kind of the Villa View's not going to give me anything more. It's not going to get more eyes on me because I'm getting it elsewhere. So it is just
wanted to do it, and I was enjoying talking to my mates about Villa, really. And I remember, like, I don't know whether you do this. Sometimes I'll like go on the Villa Talk forums or look on things and see if people are saying anything about me. I think my dad does it quite a lot as well. Like, as I look what people are saying about me. I remember looking like someone had disagreed with the fact that like he'd done Villa View just to make a media career for himself. Like that's not it's not the right reason to be doing it. Someone had a pop at me, and then someone replied that I never really thought about it, defending him, saying, "Well, he's still doing it now.
Yeah.
Like surely he doesn't need to do it now. Like he's doing it as like a hobby, and because there's a certain number of people that enjoy it. So fair play to him. Like good luck to him. What's wrong with what he's done? So I've just carried on doing it because there are people do still watch it, and people enjoy it. But then I do feel, and these are the changes that are coming, that like the Villa podcast market's become a little bit crowded. And in the last 6 months, let's say, like 1874 obviously ended with the Athletic. They got rid of a lot of the club podcasts.
Yeah.
Me and Greg Greg and I have started doing 1874 on the Villa View, and that's by far like the most viewed show.
And that was audio only before, and you bought it to YouTube
bought it
as
and
well.
we're doing video. So I'm still doing like the match previews, the post-match points, things like that. But if you look at the views, which isn't everything, but if you look at it on the face of it, across all platforms, 1874 is getting between 15 and 20k a week, whereas the other stuff's probably getting under. The other stuff will be getting a 10k maybe on a good day, a preview, because shelf life on a preview is quite not great, as you all know. So they're getting somewhere between 5 and 10k all in. So I got thinking, and then I've made friends with Dave Reed at Sky, who's a journo for Sky Sports News. He does the transfer stuff with me as well. He's also a very good producer. Like, he does lots of stuff. He's a Villa fan. He started coming on the previews, and then I just started thinking, like, there's not really. I know you're. Like, I wouldn't class you as a fan channel, Claret Blue, because you're a media outlet.
Yeah, it's our job.
But then there's all these fan channels, and then there's you, Claret Blue, media outlet doing podcasts. There's not really anything else.
Yeah.
That's a media outlet. I'd say Mom's to an extent is a media outlet, but he doesn't do video. But then everything else is kind of lumped into one as a fan channel. And this is going to sound terrible, and I don't mean it to at all. But I've had to fight hard to get away from being perceived as like fan media.
Yeah.
And being seen as a broadcaster. So like now, wherever I go, they say literally broadcaster and Villa fan.
Yeah.
It felt like, because you're in a market with all the other fan channels. Look, no disrespect to anyone else. I'm not having a pop at anyone or slagging any of the other channels off. I'm getting bracketed with fan media, which I feel like I've gone beyond now a little bit. You tell me if this sounds terrible or not. I think you know what I mean.
Yeah. So if you say TalkSport go, right, we need a Villa fan. Stephen Gerrard's been sacked. There's 10 fan channels there. We'll pluck one of them.
Yeah, but sometimes they don't. Let's see. So sometimes they don't want a media person. Sometimes they want a fan, and they come to me because they want the fan. Like, that's like, I don't feel that's. I am a fan, but I don't feel that's where I am anymore. I don't feel that's my space.
Yeah.
And then there's challenges. I felt that there's challenges with that, just because there's so many Villa podcasts, and fair play. Like, I'm not knocking anyone. Everyone can do what they want and start podcasts and do what they want with it, and great. Like, I think it's brilliant, and I think by and large, like, the Villa fans are brilliant. Like, there's none of this over the top rubbish.
Yeah.
With Villa fans, I think everyone probably offers something different. But then I did feel like it was all starting to become a bit merged, and everything was coming as one. It was starting to harm me a little bit in some of the other stuff that I want to do. The fact that I was still kind of doing fan media, but then I don't want to stop doing it, because ultimately I like talking about Villa and having a podcast about Villa. So basically made the decision. I spoke to Adam. Me and Adam are co-owners of the Villa View now, and spoke to the guys that I'm doing it with, who all, like Neil, Omar, Ty, they've all been like brilliant with it. Like, we're all, it looks like there's been no falling out. Like, we're still much. But I kind of said to them, look, I want to try and change things a little bit. You've all got your own stuff that you do. I want to move Villa View away from being a fan channel. So unfortunately, like, as a consequence of that, we won't be able to do it the way that we've been doing it. I'm quite happy to go on other people's.
Yeah.
But like I said to Neil earlier, I was like, I'm happy to come on your pod and do things for you and talk about Villa with you. But I wanted the Villa View to be something different now, because I just think it's so congested, that market. It's not going to be called the Villa View anymore. You'll still be going out on all the same things that it goes out on, but the Villa View brand is associated with being a fan channel. I associate the Villa View still with us doing fan cams.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
And the cold in the Championship when we just lost 3-1 to Barnsley at home.
Which originally was the point.
That's what I associate the Villa View with being. I thought the best thing to do now, 1874 is the most viewed stuff that we do now on that channel. So change the whole thing and just make the whole thing 1874. Won't be completely reinventing what we do. Like, there'll be some different shows, but I'll still be doing match previews, still be doing post-match shows, still be doing the big 1874 hour with Greg in the week, but just trying to make it more media-based and more journo-based. Really, you could come on now because you're a journo, aren't you?
If you'll have me.
You like just trying to make it a bit different, because you're also speaking a different. Like, I was finding that I was speaking about Villa sometimes maybe in a different way, maybe not doing myself any favours. Not that I won't say what I think, but you know what I mean. Like, fan channels are kind of one thing, and then I would do 1874 and be different.
Yeah.
I just felt like it was starting to. Harm's the wrong word, but I just felt like it was time to now just say, look, I'm not fan media.
Yeah.
This is what I do. Have a podcast, have a show, these shows that are more with journos, and get journalists on from papers and like who are on TV and radio. Like, I did a few previews with Kevin Hatchard, who's like a football expert, and people really enjoyed those shows because it's different. Because whether I'm talking about a match preview or whether it's Up the Villa podcast, whether it's Love of Paul McGrath, Villa on Tour do their stuff as well, whether it's all, we're all different people, but essentially it's kind of the same thing. It's a fan talking about the club. I want it to be more like now, like a media entity and journalists on and people who work in the media, because that then separates it from being from the fan media. And it's, like I say, it's no disrespect to fan media, because I'll be nowhere without fan media.
Well, we were kind of the start of that in a way.
All the people that have watched the Villa View, I'd never have done any. I say about the Athletic setting me on my way, but before that, even without doing the Villa View and creating an audience for myself on that and Twitter and whatnot, people following me, like, I'd be nothing without the Villa fans. Like, I've got nowhere. So I'll be forever grateful and love every single person that's ever watched even a second of what I do. If they've not liked it and they've slagged me off, like, I still appreciate it. But I just think that the time's right now with where I am in my career to make that change. So hopefully, like, people will understand that. Hopefully that makes sense to you. I know it makes sense to you, what I've said. Hopefully that makes sense to people, what I've said. But I just think that's the right thing now. And the guys have all been brilliant. Like, we'll all be mates forever. Like, we've created like a special bond doing the content over the last few years. But I just think things never stand, like, you should never stand still, should you? You should also always be looking to evolve and change the way you were doing things. Look, if things didn't evolve, then Villa would have never hired Unai Emery. Yeah. So I'm not comparing myself to Unai Emery, but I think it's just the right time and the right decision now to do it. And I went to people and spoke to them about it before I fully made the decision. I spoke to you about it and said what I wanted to do, and you said that's probably the right thing
makes
to
sense. The Villa View was started in 2016, and it was fan cams, like you said, and sharing the voice of Villa fans. That was the point, to hear opinions at a time when it was like, we're not represented well in the national media. Villa's struggling, no one's kind of standing up for us. Let's give a voice to the Villa fans. That was the point. And people who have watched from maybe not necessarily the start, but that kind of early era in the Championship will always associate the Villa View as a fan channel that gives a voice to Villa fans. And if you want to move away from that kind of...
It's not about wanting to move away from it. I feel the landscape's changed. Yeah. So if you... Basically now, right, the way the world is, if you want to have a voice about Villa, you do a podcast. Yeah. Because you can. Yeah. Anyone can buy a mic and do a podcast now. Yeah, look, I mean, you've made a living out of it. Anyone can do that. So if you want a voice, you can do it, can't you? Yeah. You can throw your opinions on Twitter or social media.
2016's it's not that long ago, but it was a very different time that there wasn't the plethora of Villa podcasts like you mentioned.
Loads, and there's ones I haven't even mentioned that are like absolutely.
People will probably take that as a dig.
Absolutely, but I don't mean they were just the first ones that came into my head when I was really off. The two guys in Ireland that do it's called the Aston Villa podcast, isn't it? Like, they're so niche, they're so funny, they're so unique, but they know loads as well. Like, there's so much
Back
stuff.
then, if you want to come and speak about Aston Villa and get your point across, you come on fan cams or you phone BBC WM.
You come on fan cams. That's it. You come on fan cams, we do fan cams for an hour, and then Rollo would cut it down to 10 minutes, and your opinion wouldn't be heard.
So he's chatting rubbish, just cut that out.
Ginger Luke, get rid of him.
But yeah, like you said, times change and things have to evolve, and if you want to be kind of seen as a broadcaster and not just the Villa fan, you've got to change.
I feel like, as much as I'm saying it's a good thing to do, in a lot of ways I feel like I haven't really got a choice. Because if I'm saying about not being... I'm happy with where I am, but I'm still not where I want to be. See, the Villa View isn't like Arsenal Fan TV, where you can do it and it's an outlet and you're making loads of money, and he's created like an outlet off the back of Arsenal fan TV. Like it's not a living. I have to be the best I can be and come across the best way I can with the other stuff.
Yeah.
So ultimately, that's why I've decided to just completely rebrand it. You know, I posted a video on my socials the other day, just kind of teasing what is great graphics from Lee Haynes. Like,
nice.
He's our graphics guy. Like unbelievable. The
nice
stuff,
logo.
Nice logo. The stuff he's come up with. He's like, well, I'll release the document that he's done. Like you've seen it. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. The length
like a
time he's got in for.
Like PDF.
This wasn't what I wanted, Lee. I just wanted a new logo.
These are the colours that we're going to use.
I didn't even ask him for that video. He just did it. So
nice.
And just to thank everyone who's ever watched the Villa View, anyone who's ever taken part in it, Dolan and Tom, Matt Lynch, the people that were there at the start. Again, like friends for life now. From you, we wouldn't be mates if it wasn't for the Villa View, would we? And it's like the Villa View has been a brilliant vehicle for both of us. So yeah, it's not a decision that I made easily, because the Villa View is a massive part of my life and has been a massive part of my life. But I just think it's time to rebrand it and change it for the reasons that are just outlined. Just time for something new, and to make it try and separate it and make it a little bit different. Because people, when Greg's not going on about financial fair play, I think people really enjoy it. Really enjoy the 1874 podcast. So yeah, and again, Greg's someone I'm eternally grateful for, because he got me into the Athletic, because he wanted me to be the one that was doing the Villa podcast. So yeah, been very, very lucky. You have to have a bit of luck as well. You know, I've had setbacks like you will have done, tons of setbacks over the years with it, but managed to have a lot of luck as well, and fortunate people have liked me and took chances on me and let me in. So yeah, hopefully we'll do this again in 2 years, and I'll say I can sit down and finally say to you, I'm where I want to be now. I am where I want to be, but I'm not too far away.
Dan, thank you very much for your time and your honesty and your openness to discuss things. It feels like two very different podcasts there in one.
Yeah.
The first half about Villa was a good chat, but I like hearing about the kind of, obviously I know a lot of it anyway from speaking to you pretty much every day. It's good to kind of throw people behind the curtain basically and show them a little bit of what's going on. So thanks for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching. Subscribe to Claret Blue. Forget about all the others. No one else really wants to go over to
There's a new pod on the block.
Yeah, let's me giving exposure to that is like butting heads with a rival kind of thing.
I don't know why you did that.
Yeah, let's subscribe to Claret Blue. Stay here only. Thank you for watching. There's plenty of other stuff coming up from the pre-season tour. Johnny's flying out to the US probably as we speak actually. So plenty to come from that. Going back and watch the Matty Cash interview. It's very good. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all very soon.
Wait there. What? Did you know that he did the Matty Cash interview as well? You should.
Yeah, I was only behind the camera as well.
Behind the camera.
To him.
Okay.
Shame.
Subscribe to everything. Your post notifications on.